Every time we gossip, we reinforce the belief that we can't handle conflict directly. And imagine just extending this over time of years or decades of your life. And we develop then this belief that we need to tear others down in order for us to feel good about ourselves. And this belief that we can only connect with others by creating division. And this is where gossip traps us in a toxic mindset. It keeps us stuck in playing the victim, blaming others for what's wrong instead of taking responsibility for our part.
Welcome to Beyond Success, the podcast for high achievers seeking deeper meaning, fulfillment, and purpose. Now, here's your host, world-renowned leadership coach and therapist, Tian, Ph.D.
In this episode, we're tackling a topic that most people never stop to question, even though it silently poisons relationships, teams, and even your own peace of mind. And that is gossip. When you understand what gossip really does to you, to others, and to the culture that you're a part of, you'll start to see how cutting it out unlocks deeper trust, cleaner communication, and, frankly, a whole lot less drama. You'll feel lighter, freer, like you've stepped out of the shadows and into something far more powerful: honesty and integrity. You see, when gossip becomes a habit, it doesn't just harm your relationships, it chips away at your integrity, at your conscience. It creates cracks in the foundations of trust of yourself and with others, whether at work, at home, or in friendships. And those cracks grow over time. They turn into misunderstandings, resentment, and a culture of fear. And it keeps you stuck in a cycle where problems never get solved, and connection stays superficial at best. So if you've ever wondered why certain relationships feel heavy, or why some teams can't seem to gel, it might be time to look at how gossip is playing a role. In this episode, I'm going to help you break free from that cycle and replace it with something far more meaningful. In case you don't know who I am, I'm Tian. For almost 2 decades, I've been helping hundreds of thousands of people from over 87 countries attain success, happiness, and fulfillment in their personal and professional lives. All right, so let's dive into the first of 5 points that we're covering today. The first point is what gossip actually is. Most people think gossip is harmless, like just venting or blowing off steam. But that's not what gossip actually is. Gossip happens when you talk negatively about someone to a person who has no ability or authority to resolve the issue. That's it, simplest definition. The effects of gossip are insidious. It quietly eats away at trust. When you gossip, you're sending a signal, not just to the person you're gossiping about, but also to the person you're gossiping with. What you're really saying is, hey, I can't be trusted to bring this up directly, so I'll just complain behind their back. How do you think that lands with the person that you're venting to? Do you think they're thinking, oh, I'm so glad this person trusts me enough to share this? No, they're actually, if they're smart, they're thinking, when's this person going to talk about me like this? Gossip creates a culture of fear and mistrust and backstabbing. It doesn't just stay in one corner of your life. If you're doing it at work, it'll end up spilling into your personal life. If you're doing it with your family, don't be surprised when that energy carries over to your leadership style at work. Gossip isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's just a quick remark, a passive-aggressive comment in passing, or venting disguised as just getting something off your chest. But it all comes back to the same root problem. It's an avoidance tactic, a way to dodge uncomfortable conversations while pretending to address the issue. And the thing is, gossip actually doesn't solve anything. It might feel good in the moment, like scratching an itch, but after, you're left with the same unresolved problem and now a little less trust in the tank. The alternative is something I'm going to be getting into more detail later in this episode, but the alternative starts with recognizing that gossip isn't just bad for the person being talked about, of course, but it's also bad for you, the person doing the gossiping. Every time you gossip, you're chipping away at your own integrity. Integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about alignment. It's about being the same person in private as you are in public. Gossip pulls you out of alignment because it creates 2 faces, the one you show to people directly and the one you reveal when they're not around. So you end up becoming two-faced, and this reinforces your two-facedness. When you cut out gossip, you're making a commitment to yourself and the people around you, a commitment to trust, to honesty. Eliminating gossip isn't easy, of course, but it's necessary. It's not just about fixing relationships. It's about creating a culture of honesty, respect, and connection. And if you're serious about building trust and living a life of integrity, you've got to cut out gossip. Okay, let's move to point 2. Why do we gossip in the first place? At first glance, it might seem harmless, like casual venting or just sharing an opinion. But beneath the surface, gossip is usually driven by deeper forces. Fears that we haven't fully faced, insecurities that we haven't addressed, or even a subtle need for validation. Let's start with fear. Gossip often happens when we're afraid of confrontation. Someone does something that bothers us, and instead of addressing it directly, we sidestep. We talk to someone else about them instead. Why? Because it feels safer. Avoiding the direct conversation means we don't risk rejection or anger or awkwardness. But avoiding doesn't solve the problem either. It just postpones it and then lets it grow. Then there's insecurity. Gossip can be a quick way to feel superior or to take back a feeling of control. It's an attempt to shift the focus onto someone else's flaws so that we don't have to look at our own. It's a temporary boost for the ego. But deep down, if you're smart, it leaves us feeling worse about ourselves because even as we criticize someone else, part of us knows it's coming from a place of weakness. And sometimes gossip is about seeking validation. Sharing juicy details or venting frustrations can feel like a shortcut to connection with others. You're looking for agreement, for someone to say you're right and they're wrong. But that kind of validation is fleeting. It's surface level. It doesn't last. And it doesn't resolve the underlying issue or build anything meaningful. Gossip doesn't just come from these fears and insecurities. It actually amplifies them. Every time we gossip, we reinforce the belief that we can't handle conflict directly. And imagine just extending this over time of years or decades of your life. And we develop then this belief that we need to tear others down in order for us to feel good about ourselves. And this belief that we can only connect with others by creating division. And this is where gossip traps us in a toxic mindset. It keeps us stuck in playing the victim, blaming others for what's wrong instead of taking responsibility for our part. It lets us avoid discomfort in the short term, but the long-term cost is our own trust, self-respect, and peace of mind. So how do we break this cycle? Well, it starts with self-awareness. The next time you feel tempted to gossip, pause. Ask yourself, what's really happening here? What am I really feeling, and why? Maybe you're upset about something you haven't addressed. Maybe you're jealous of someone else's success, or maybe you're just looking for attention. Whatever it is, name it. Once you identify what's behind the impulse, ask yourself another question. What's the most constructive way to deal with this? Maybe it's having an honest conversation with the person involved. Maybe it's recognizing that your emotions are about you, not them. Or maybe it's just letting the issue go, because in the bigger picture, it doesn't really matter. This practice isn't always comfortable, of course, but it is powerful. Each time you choose honesty over gossip, you build trust with others and, more importantly, with yourself. You strengthen your ability to handle conflict. You show yourself that you don't need to tear anyone else down in order for you to feel good or connected. This kind of shift, of course, doesn't happen immediately, but it's a step towards becoming the kind of person who can lead and live with integrity and connect deeply and handle challenges head-on, a person of courage. Look, we've all gossiped, myself included. It's part of being human. But when you start catching yourself, understanding the deeper motives behind it, and choosing a different path, you can break this toxic pattern. You create space for real growth and stronger relationships. Now let's get into the third point, the cost of gossip. It's tempting to brush it off as harmless venting, but the truth is, it comes with a price, one that's much higher than most people realize. First, let's look at trust. Gossip destroys trust. Every time you talk about someone behind their back, you're sending a message to the person you're talking to, and that message is, I might do the same thing to you. And that's what they're going to pick up if they're smart. Even if they agree with what you're saying in the moment, a seed of doubt is now planted in their minds. They start wondering what you're saying about them when they're not around. And this kind of erosion doesn't stop there. It spreads. A team, a family, a group of friends. Trust is the foundation that holds them together. Gossip cracks that foundation. It creates an environment where people don't feel safe, when they're constantly second-guessing each other. And once that environment sets in, it's hard to rebuild. Then there's conflict. Gossip doesn't resolve it, it avoids it. Instead of addressing the issue directly with the person involved, you're outsourcing your frustration to someone else who can't actually fix the problem. And you know it. And the result is the issue stays unresolved. And then the tensions simmer, and then resentment builds behind the scenes. What could have been handled in a single, honest, but difficult conversation now turns into a months-long or even a years-long rift. And the most overlooked cost of gossip is what it does to you, the gossiper. When you gossip, you step out of alignment with your own integrity. You create a gap between the person you want to be and the person you're choosing to be in that moment. And whether you notice it or not consciously, that gap takes a severe toll over time. There's a core in you, let's call it your higher self or your conscience, whatever you want to call it. The core of you knows when you're out of alignment. And that core of you starts to nudge you, whispering, "This isn't who we are." But if you ignore it long enough, the nudges get louder. They show up as stress, anxiety, even guilt. It's like carrying around a weight that you don't realize is there, until hopefully you finally put it down. And the real irony is that gossip might feel satisfying in the moment. It might even feel like it strengthens your bond with the person that you're gossiping with. But it does the exact opposite in the long run. It chips away at your relationships. It erodes your credibility, and it takes away your peace of mind. So the next time you're tempted to gossip, ask yourself, is this really worth the cost? What if instead I had the courage to choose to address the issue directly, or to let it go entirely? Both of those options lead to some sort of resolution, but gossip does not. Gossip just keeps you stuck.
Hey, if you're an achiever who's been struggling when it comes to managing your emotions or navigating your relationships, I get it. So many high performers hit a wall when it comes to emotional mastery. Maybe you've noticed that stress, frustration, or anger is seeping into your personal or professional life, or you feel disconnected from those you care about. That's where my Emotional Mastery program comes in. It's based on peer-reviewed, evidence-based therapeutic methods to help you find happiness, love, and real fulfillment. Learn how to break free from the emotional roller coaster and start thriving in every area of your life. You can find out more at davidtianphd.com/emotional mastery. That's DAVIDTIANPHD.com/emotional mastery.
Now let's get to the fourth point, and we'll shift gears here and talk solutions now. If gossip is the problem, and we've seen how destructive it can be, then what's the alternative? What's the better way forward? The answer is direct, honest, and compassionate communication. It's straightforward, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Confronting someone directly about an issue requires courage. It means you have to sit with the discomfort, to risk vulnerability, and to be open to hearing something that you might not like. But the truth is, every time you choose to speak openly instead of gossiping, you're investing in trust, in clarity, and in the strength of your relationships. So how do you do it? Let's break it down. First, start with I statements. And this is similar to what I used to teach when it came to dating. I statements. This is crucial. When you approach someone with a concern, avoid blaming or making it about their character. Instead, focus on your own feelings and the specific facts of the situation. For example, instead of saying, "You're always late and disrespectful of my time," try this instead. I feel frustrated when meetings start late because it impacts my schedule. Do you see the difference? The first version puts the other person on the defensive and is arguable whether it's true or not. The second is sharing purely from your point of view. It opens the door to a conversation, and it's less about pointing fingers and more about simply sharing what's going on for you. Next, choose your timing wisely. Don't bring up sensitive topics when emotions are running high or in the middle of a chaotic situation. Like the renowned psychotherapist and psychiatrist Irvin Yalom has said, strike while the iron's cold. Wait until things cool down before you bring it up. Find a moment when both of you can focus. And don't underestimate the power of a calm, private setting. A conversation held with intention is far more effective than one blurted out in frustration or anger. Okay, now let's talk tone. And this is where compassion really makes a difference. Directness doesn't mean being mean or harsh or cold. You can be honest and still come from a place of empathy or compassion or just kindness. You can start with something like, look, I really value our relationship, and that's why I want to talk about this. Frame it in terms of a desire for more connection or to improve the relationship. This sets the stage for collaboration instead of conflict. And another key is to stay curious. When we're upset, our brains love to jump to conclusions, like they're doing this on purpose, or they just don't care. But the thing is, most people aren't acting out of malice. Often they don't even realize how their actions are affecting you or how they're affecting others. So instead of assuming, ask questions from a place of curiosity, like, what was going on for you when this happened? What thoughts or feelings were you having when this was happening? Or can you help me understand where you're coming from? These kinds of questions shift the energy of the conversation. They show the other person that you're not there to attack, you're there to understand. I know it's tempting to avoid these kinds of conversations altogether. Most of us were never taught or have had modeled for us how to handle conflict well. But the good news is it's a skill, and the more you practice it, like any skill, the better you will get. And the payoff is massive and necessary for your life fulfillment and happiness. Let me share a quick story. A client of mine, let's call him Sam, was struggling with his team at work. Meetings were tense, communication felt strained, and very little was ever getting resolved. After a few sessions, he admitted that instead of addressing problems directly, he'd been venting to his colleagues about his frustrations. When I asked him why, he said, "It just feels easier. I don't want to rock the boat." But that easier path was costing him. Trust in himself and in the team was eroding, productivity was stalling, and the stress was eating away at his confidence and his sleep. So we worked on changing his approach. I coached him on how to use I statements, on how to ask curious questions, and how to address issues directly and compassionately at the same time. It wasn't perfect right away at first, of course. He had some messy conversations, but as he practiced, things started to change. His team began to open up. Issues that had been brewing for months finally got resolved, and Sam started feeling more confident as a leader because he wasn't avoiding problems anymore. He was tackling them head on. The same is true for all of us. Direct communication isn't just a tool for conflict. It's a way to build stronger, deeper relationships. It's how you show people they matter enough for you to be honest with them, and that you're paying them the respect of assuming that they can handle your honesty. So the next time you're tempted to gossip, take a moment and ask yourself, what's the conversation I need to have instead? Then, have courage and go and have it, with honesty, with curiosity, and with kindness. Now let's bring it all together with the final point. How to cultivate a gossip-free zone in your life. Because the thing is, eliminating gossip isn't a one-time decision. It's a practice, something you choose to do every day in every conversation. And it starts with a personal commitment. The first step is simple. Pause. The next time you're about to say something about someone who isn't in the room, take a deep breath. Ask yourself, why am I about to say this? Is it helpful? Is it constructive? Or is it just venting, criticizing, or avoiding something deeper? And that moment of reflection can make all the difference. Sometimes just pausing is enough to stop gossip before it starts. Hey, but let's be honest, it's not easy. Gossip isn't just about what you say, it's also about what you allow. When someone else starts veering into gossip, what do? It's tempting to nod along and to stay quiet, or even to join in. Instead, try redirecting the conversation. You don't need to call anyone out or make it awkward. Just steer things in a more positive, constructive direction. For example, if someone starts venting about a coworker, you might say instead, "That sounds tough. Have you had a chance to talk to them about it directly?" That one question does two things. First, it shifts the focus from complaining to problem solving. Second, it subtly sets a boundary. It shows you're not interested in gossiping without being confrontational about it. And if you're in a leadership position, whether at work or in your family or within a community, you have an opportunity to set the tone. Make it clear that direct, honest communication is the standard. Encourage open feedback, even when it's uncomfortable. This kind of culture doesn't happen immediately. It takes consistency. But as more people adopt it, gossip will fade. The energy will shift. Conversations will become more productive. Relationships will deepen. And trust, the foundation of any strong connection, will grow. And the payoff is living gossip-free doesn't just benefit the people around you. It transforms you. When you stop gossiping, you align your words with your values. You show up as someone who's trustworthy, someone who doesn't need to tear others down to feel good. And that kind of integrity has ripple effects in every area of your life. Living with a clear conscience is a reward of its own. Think about the relationships in your life, your closest friendships, your most important professional connections, your family. What would those relationships look like if gossip were completely off the table? How much lighter would they feel? How much stronger could they become? This is the power of a gossip-free zone in life. It's not about perfection, it's about intention. Making a choice, day by day, to live with honesty, to lead with compassion, and to build trust in every interaction that's important to you. So here's your challenge. Start now, today. Start pausing before speaking about others. Redirect gossip when it comes your way. And notice how the quality of your relationships begin to shift. Okay, let's recap what we've covered today. First, we define gossip for what it really is. Talking negatively about someone else to a person who can't resolve the issue. It feels harmless in the moment, but it erodes trust, it creates drama, and it keeps real problems unsolved. Next, we explored why we gossip. It often stems from fear or insecurity or the need for validation. It's a way to avoid tough conversations or to mask your own feelings, but it ends up making us feel worse in the long run. Then we looked at the cost. Gossip breaks trust. It perpetuates unresolved conflict, and it chips away at your integrity. It keeps you stuck in patterns that sabotage your relationships, your reputation, and your peace of mind. And the alternative is forthright communication. We talked about how using direct, compassionate, and honest conversations can replace gossip by starting with I statements, staying curious instead of being judgmental, and choosing understanding over making assumptions. You create stronger, more authentic connections. And finally, we got more practical and explained how cultivating a gossip-free zone is a daily practice. It means pausing before speaking, redirecting conversations that veer into gossip, and committing to a culture of honesty and accountability. But this isn't just about being a better leader or partner or friend. It's about aligning with who you really are. Living gossip-free means stepping into integrity, showing up with authenticity, and building relationships rooted in trust. These are the qualities that transcend material success and lead to a life of deeper connection, fulfillment, and meaning. So as you head back into your day, I invite you to carry this with you. Let's create relationships and a life where trust thrives and integrity leads the way. Thank you so much for listening. As of the recording of this, we're coming into the new year, so Happy New Year and welcome to 2025. I look forward to growing with you together in 2025. And if this episode has helped you in any way, please share it with anyone else that you think could benefit from it. If you liked it, hit a like or give it a good rating on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And if you have any feedback whatsoever, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment or send me a message or an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much again for listening. I look forward to welcoming you to the next episode. Until then, Happy New Year. Tian signing out.